We'll move on now. We have our next guest on this program. This year's celebration of the World Teachers' Day is another reminder that teachers are indeed a bedrock of every society, and their importance cannot be overemphasized. However, according to the United Nations, the world faces an unprecedented global teacher shortage, made worse by a decline in their working conditions and status. Nigeria's case is troubling, as there are not enough teachers for the teeming student population. One reason cited is the poor welfare of teachers in the country, which has driven very bright minds away from the profession into more lucrative vocations. According to the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, the country has only 2.3 million registered teachers on its database as of 2023, that is this year. This is barely enough to cater to the over 20.1 million out-of-school children, according to UNESCO. To discuss the issues around the World Teachers' Day and the shortage of teachers in Nigeria, I'm now being joined by the Provost of the Federal College of Education, Akoka, in Lagos, Dr. Ademola Azeez. Good to have you on the show, Dr. Azeez. Thank you very much for joining me. Okay, Dr. Azeez, you have been a teacher from primary school to secondary school to teacher training to the tertiary level, where you have now risen to get to the level of a provost. But I ask you, the theme of this year's Teachers' Day, which was a few days ago, World Teachers' Day, was the teachers we need for the education we want. A global imperative to reverse teacher shortage. I just need you to address that theme. Do we have a teacher shortage in Nigeria? Because once upon a time in this country, everybody wanted to be a teacher because teachers used to get returns from farmers. They will give them palm wine, they will give them yam tubers, they will give them pepper. In fact, teachers were like alternative monarchs within the community. Why is it that all of a sudden we are talking about shortage of teachers? Nobody wants to be a teacher anymore. What went wrong here in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. And I wish to also congratulate Nigerians and teachers, especially in Nigeria, for also taking part in this year's World Teachers' Day. I think many teachers trooped out on that day to also commemorate that important day. Yes, just like you said, teachers over the years have always been revered in the country, just like you have in other climes. But over the years, the decline, started setting in, simply because the reference given to teachers started declining. Because, like we said, teachers in the past, even when some of us were in the primary school, maybe they are the next to the Obas, or the chiefs in the community. But over the years, this started declining. The Nigerian educational system has produced the best of teachers over the years. And I can also argue as a teacher that the standard has not really declined or diminished. What has diminished is the welfare, which has also made many professional teachers to also look for other means, of survival. Because at a point, the remuneration was not worthwhile, so that people were looking for other means of also survival. In those days, teachers would stick to their job without adding any other vocation to it. But now, you have to also, because of pure remuneration, you have to look for other means of survival. The shortage, yes, there's shortage of teachers, not because teachers are not being produced. Teachers are being produced, but many of graduates of education decide to look for other profession or other job, other vocation, so as to also get better means of living. I think that's one of the problems, because, for example, in college education, we produce teachers we have about 27 federal college education now, about 66 or 67 state college education, and many private college education. And we turn out teachers every year. So, but because not all the qualified teachers at the primary and junior secondary school are engaged. They are not fully engaged. They are there. So, but because the remuneration is also very poor, they prefer to also do other job or other vocation instead of also going for teaching, in which they were trained for.
Okay. On the occasion of the World Teachers Day, a few days ago, President Tinubu said Nigerian teachers in this environment will get their due, right? And that their reward will no longer be in heaven. It will be here on earth as a teacher. Do you feel that there's some hope there?
Yes, sir.
And that you feel reassured that you will get your reward on earth, not in heaven?
Yes. I also believe that the disposition of the new government, even from the previous government, the government of President Buhari, before even that administration, wound up, that administration also increased the retirement age from 60 to 65, and it's also gazetted, and that there was also a pronouncement that henceforth, any candidate that registers for education will be given stipend, and we expect that will start soon, and that there are other welfare packages that were also announced, which we feel that will be implemented soon. And if you look at the budget for 2022 for education is about 7.2. If I'm very correct. This year's one is about 8.8, even though it's not near the 15 to 22% that UNESCO suggests. But we hope that gradually we'll get to that. And I'm sure that if teachers' welfare are taken care of, there will be more professional teachers who want to go back to teaching, and they also stick to that teaching instead of looking for another job.
Okay, you are talking about President Tinubu saying he will treat teachers well. Before now, there was a decision by the federal government to increase salaries and backdate the arrears till January 2023. What is the reaction to that in the teaching community at the tertiary level where you belong to? Do you think that that's a lot of hope? I'm sure polytechnics and colleges of education, you guys got about 25%. So it's like you are expecting a windfall. Do you think that addresses the major challenges in the education sector?
Well, it's part of it, in the sense that if you look at the value of Naira now, any amount added to the salary of teachers or any worker for that matter is value added. Even though we might say that 25% is below expectation. But we have to start from somewhere. And I hope that if that 25% is implemented to solve a lot of problems for teachers. And beyond that, beyond salary increment, I also believe that other welfare of teachers should also be taken care of. And in terms of other welfare like housing, like transportation, and other welfare scheme, and that may not also require cash, Yes, salary increment is good, but there are other things that as teachers we can also enjoy from the government, which I'm sure that the government is in position to also provide, for example, accommodation and transportation for teachers. If teachers can live very close to where they work, if they can also be given allocation for other staff quarters or even building of their own, I think there will be less agitation for salary increment because most of those things will have been taken care of by the government. And I'm sure that with the disposition of government, and that we can achieve that in due course.
Yeah, but this shortage that the theme for this year focuses upon is also about the competence of the teachers. I mean, at one point, Kaduna State organized a test for teachers. They couldn't even pass the same test that they provide for their students. Okay? And we've always had this issue about the competence of teachers. What do you think is responsible for a situation whereby all kinds of flotsam and jetsam of society, who go to schools and they are more interested in selling handouts and selling chin-chin and pop-off, are the ones running Nigeria's education system? You have been in the system. What do you think is responsible? And who are these incompetents who just manage to get into the system? Is it about recruitment? Or is it that people like you are provosts? You just bring your friends, your relations to come and teach without due process?
What is the problem did not just start. That challenge has been there gradually. I think what we need as a country is to make teaching as a profession very, very competitive, just like what is done in other climes, where if you don't attain certain qualification, you cannot even be invited for interview. And that in other climes, if you are not a professional teacher, you are not a certified teacher, you can't be asked to come and teach. And because now every Dick and Harry want to teach, maybe because that's the last that's the last hope. So at the primary, nursery and primary school, especially some private schools, you can hardly find maybe few professional or qualified teachers because we also have to look at regulation too. So we have to look at regulation, and so that at least professional qualified teachers are employed, and that if the packages are okay, and that you get the best for teaching profession in Nigeria, just like it's done in other climes. So the teachers who are not professional qualified can be weeded off if there's still competition, and that if you don't attain certain qualification, you shouldn't be invited to come and teach. You shouldn't be shortlisted, not to talk of even be appointed to teach. But because there are no jobs and people just want to, especially maybe in the private institutions, you find all kinds of teachers there. But in government-established institutions, you can hardly find a teacher that is not professionally qualified.
Okay, Dr. Azeez, the reality that we have in Nigeria is that many of our teachers are even going abroad because they believe that they will get better pay abroad, they will get better life, they will get better working conditions. So mass migration of teachers to the UK. I'm rephrasing an earlier question. How do we check that? Because even when teachers retire from the service, we don't have a system in place for replacing them.
Okay.
How do we address those special challenges?
Yes, it's a problem which we have also been discussing at the level of a committee of provosts, committee of federal provosts, even the unions. That's the academic staff union. Also discussing that it's a big problem, and that when people say that the Nigerian education system is dwindling, if it's dwindling, Why is it that teachers are moving abroad? Because there must be certain qualities that those countries see in them. Because if you see the number of candidates that are also registering for TRCN now, it's very alarming. Because they know that Nigerian education system is not bad. And anywhere we are, I think what we lack are basic facilities, infrastructure, that are also getting better gradually with TET fund in place, especially for young institutions. I think in the next few years, if we are able to also improve on the provision of infrastructures and machines where we can also use to also train students, especially in vocational and technical education. And I'm sure that the remuneration is improved upon. I'm sure there will be less agitation of those who are also going abroad for better payment or for greener pasture. I think because if you look at the population of Nigeria, there's no way we have this population that won't be producing teachers for other countries. There's no way. Because even if all of us also are even taken care of, there are some who also be requested to come and teach in other countries. But as it is now, I think if the welfare conditions and the welfare packages and schemes are improved upon, you will have less professional teachers who might want to also migrate abroad. But as it is now, it will be difficult for us to stop it until things get better.
Okay, I think it's very good that you've talked about infrastructure. One of the things that President Tinubu talked about, represented as it happened by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, was that, technologies will be introduced and all of that. Okay, in the age of artificial intelligence and all these concerns about copyright, piracy, and all of that, to what extent do you think that the educational reforms proposed by this current administration will help the education system, at the heart of which is introduction of technology, upgrading the infrastructure? Or you think that's just talk to serve purpose?
Well, since 2021, when we experienced this COVID-19, pandemic, the thinking, even the educational system, has been changing because we have always been operating, physical, teaching, while you have the students in the classrooms, and the teacher has to also address them. But that's changing now because with the advent of that COVID-19, we now have blend of both physical and virtual, and that TET Fund has also been trying to also invest a lot of money in making sure that at least we have modern technology, facilities in teaching, so that at least we can also meet with the rest of the world. But we also need training. We need training, and I can tell you that with TET Fund in place, a lot of Nigerian scholars have been going abroad for PhD, for master's degree program, and so if all our institutions in Nigeria, institutions are also well furnished, are well equipped, and I'm sure we can get more professionals instead of traveling abroad. That also get their training here. So we need training so that we'll be able to also stem the tide of those who also want to also go abroad, and so we can do that. And that TET Fund has been trying, and now if you get your allocation, you make sure that certain percentage of that allocation is also focused on technology, and so that you can also build your infrastructure. Especially, we have special grants for ICT in all our institutions now, and you must utilize that grant for the purpose for which the fund is being released. And I'm sure that with time, we can get there with training and better remuneration for teachers.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Ademola Azeez, Provost of the Federal College of Education in Akoka, Lagos, on this issue of how we can reverse the shortage of teachers and also address the challenges in the teaching sector of Nigeria, so that Nigeria can provide enough teachers who are competent and capable and who can move this country forward in line with the expectations of everyone, that education is the key to the future for Nigeria to be competitive and to hold our future with the best that the country can provide, many of whom are actually available here. Thank you, Dr. Ademola Azeez.